Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time, a Wave Sports and Entertainment original presented by Prize Picks. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Subscribe, like, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars. I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. It is Foxworth Friday. Domonique Foxworth, what's going on?
Not much, man. Getting ready for a jam-packed kids sports weekend. And I know everyone who's listening would have already seen the game, but I'm looking forward to this game tonight.
Yeah, well, we got game 2, so you can look forward to game 2. I think that we could, keep it relevant to what the people are going for. We got that basketball. We got a lot of things that are going on here. I guess we'll start with the basketball, even though there's a game 1 that's happened that we haven't seen by the time the people are watching this. You know what? We should talk about this other thing, and then I think we'll get some momentum into game 1. As we sit down, this news done broke that the Lakers are planning to hire Dan Hurley, or planning to make a giant offer to Dan Hurley and hope that he takes the job. My immediate question, I think, is the same as everybody else's immediate question. Did JJ Redick really think he was going to be getting that job? Did they stray that man along only to come around and be like, psych, just play it. We go hire a real coach.
Yeah, I mean, it suggests to me, now, it's possible that he could have been stringing them along, but to what benefit? It suggests to me that there are differing factions and opinions in there, because it was the JJ thing came out of nowhere, so far out of nowhere that it kind of was it ain't realistic. Then real basketball people was like, nah, this is happening. Windhorse was like, nah, this is happening. I can't say it's happening, but it's kind of happening. Get ready for after the finals. They announced JJ. And then out of nowhere, this the only way and obviously completely speculating, is it feels like the organization had galvanized around some person, and somebody in there was like, nah, we got to stop this. And the only way we can stop it is with the biggest name possible. And they went and pulled all the money together that they needed, and they're going to shoot it at Hurley.
But you feel like somebody was in that room, whoever got a really big voice, and somebody was like, well, fine then. What's your better idea? You got all the answers. What's your great idea? And they was like, we're going to call Dan Hurley.
Yeah. Maybe it's just me making a TV show out of it. But that's the only way that I could imagine, unless they just don't like JJ and they just want to string him along, because it seemed like a done deal. And normally we don't get these out of nowhere things. They start to bubble up. No one was talking about Dan Hurley last week.
Right. That's the thing. I think you don't hear very often circumstances where a name is bandied about in the way that JJ's name has been bandied about, and where it felt like they were flying test balloons. Yeah. At every turn, they were just putting it out there to see if somebody was going to step up and say, hey, fellows, I don't know about this. But they told us a little bit more and a little bit more. And then there was that podcast, and everybody was going and checking that out. And it was a little bit more, and it was a little bit more. And then out of nowhere, Woj, who you got to understand, Woj wrote a book about Dan Hurley's daddy. It's a really good book. I recommend you check it out, called The Miracle of St. Anthony. But he in there with them people, right? And now he comes and he's like, hey, it looks like they're going to bring a giant offer to Dan Hurley, and Dan Hurley's thinking about taking it. And now everybody seems to be on board with this. I mean, look, I guess Dan Hurley's won 2 national championships. That is a giant big deal. I don't know too much about how he deals with his players. He seems to know that you can't talk to grown men the way that you would talk to college players. All those things seem to be going about. But to me, the real story is this, and you tell me if I'm tripping here. If you are a college coach and you can get somebody else to pay you reasonably similar money to do anything else in the world, you might want to go take that anything else in the world if it is presented in front of you. And that seems to me, that to me, if Hurley ultimately takes this job, that's the lesson right there. It is college basketball. That is a bad job, coaching college basketball.
I think there's a bunch of different ways we can look at this, because it could also just be Hurley trying to get his money up. Not that it's not high enough and he can't get other offers. That could be it. But I think there's no discussion around the point that you just made. That seems like a straight up fact. There's another angle is can he have success? Will he be good? And if the thing that always comes to mind is, just because these jobs have the same name don't mean that they're the same job. And assuming that a college coach is going to be good in the NBA or pros for that matter, because he was good in college is a faulty assumption. So hopefully they're smart enough to know that the skills that they're looking for, they have to find out if he has those skills, and it could fail. But to your point, and they're not going to pay him comparable money. They're going to pay him more money. But yeah, particularly if you want to be a basketball coach, and I guess you could argue being an NBA coach is a lot more about relationship management than it is about X's and O's. But I think it's more about X's and O's than college coaching is. College coaching to me seems a lot more about recruiting, right?
Well, that's where this gets to be interesting, right? College coaching has a lot to do with recruiting. And if you recruit at a certain level, you can overcome whatever X and O shortcomings you may have, right? Got that. However, I think the question to ask now about college coaching is not so much about whether the job is recruiting as much as what does recruiting mean in 2024 versus what it used to mean. And what it means now is explicit discussions about how much we're going to pay you. And I think a lot of people make the argument that people are willing to pay this money, or now that the players can get paid, the coaches lose power, and now the coaches are mad because they lose power. Kind of, sort of, I see the point that you're trying to make, but I think they're misunderstanding what the real deal is. These coaches are running the budgets. Like when it's coming time to talk about NIL money and it's going through the program, the coaches are the ones who's deciding who gets how much, right? That's where the control freak element comes in. But also they kind of got to do that because you can't just leave these glorified groupie fans in charge of deciding how much money people are going to wind up getting, right? So the coaches, they're now general managers, like managing a salary cap. This is not the job that any of them signed up for, even the ones who signed up to pay. None of them signed up for it to be what this game is now turned into. So what have we seen over the last few years? Mike Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, Jay Wright, Nick Saban. We could probably throw a couple other names. Them cats is like, man, I got my bread. I don't need this badness. I'm out of here. And to me, that is what the sign would be if Dan Hurley comes off 2 national championships. And by the way, at a school that doesn't have that football money, so they could pony up some money, but they can pony up money for him, but can they pony up the money to keep these players coming in here to be as good as you need to be to win on a high level? Nah, man, I think any of these guys that have an opportunity now to go to the NBA are all going to go to the NBA, because even if they flame out in the NBA, they're probably going to get a contract between 4 and 6 years, because that's what it's going to take to get them to leave college. You're going to have to give them a 4 to 6 year contract, something like that. Looking at the money that coaches are getting paid now, that's probably going to be somewhere between $8 and $10 million. So let's say you get an $8 million contract for 4 years. That's a guaranteed $32 million that you are going to receive. And if you flame out, you will come back to college where somebody will fall over themselves to give you an $8 to $10 million job. They all going to bail as soon as they get a chance.
And hopefully 4 years from now, things in college might have a little bit more structure and a little bit easier to understand. So like the Hurley situation, I don't know what kind of alumni base they got. I don't know what type of industry they got around that college town, but my guess is it's real tough to pay all these players. And to your point about what recruiting has become, at one point it was, and this is some real old man take, but it don't mean it's wrong, but at one point it was, get your kids in there. Now, you got to recruit them boys that's already on your roster. And you got to renegotiate contracts on an annual basis. You out here like, man, we got to pull him. If he get his average too high, it's going to be real hard to keep him here. And then they could also just jump to the NBA. Like, it just feels like a tough place to work. And I'd go take that $32 million if it was offered. And you said go back to college. Nah, once I got to the NBA, I'd be looking for an assistant job. Like just keep me in here. Just keep me in here.
That's ego, though. That's ego. You're like, not everybody going to be willing to be out here carrying. Like, one thing I'll always give Calipari, bless his heart, after it didn't work out with the Nets, he went and worked as an assistant to Larry Brown. Boy, I know that had to be a humbler, dog. I know that had to be a humbler. But you said something in that, and I think that the ego is going to make these guys continue to coach, right? Like, I don't think that part changes. But I thought it was interesting, the point that you made about how maybe in 4 years there'll be some order and somebody would have figured out what the hell is going on, because it just looks like chaos to me. It looks top to bottom everywhere. Like that whole game is collapsing.
Yeah, I think that the thing about chaotic situations is there's always opportunity in there and someone could always benefit from it. But if you're already on top, you don't want chaos. People at the bottom, people in the mix, they like, oh, all right. Like if I was at a small school or if I was an assistant coach and I was 28 years old, I'm like, this is madness. Let me figure out the angle. But if I'm Jay Wright, if I'm Dan Hurley, I'm looking at this like, man, I had this thing sorted. And now y'all just going to shake up this whole thing and figure it out. But yeah, that can't be fun for them.
Dude, I was talking to somebody who knows Jay Wright very well. And he was floored that he walked away from that money. He just could not conceptualize the idea of walking away from the kind of bread that Jay Wright was getting paid. Now, first of all, how old do you think Jay Wright is?
48.
Jay Wright is 62 years old.
Just handsome. Just a handsome white man.
I see. I was about to say, like, when it comes down to it, you know, yeah, he aged a little different, than the scouting report would have had you believe. By the way, shout out to Jay Wright, hashtag White Gerald, Jerold.
Oh.
Yeah, he sounded like he played running back for Oklahoma. But oh, no. He white Gerald. So, but straight up, my man just could not believe that Jay Wright walked away from that bread, man. Jay Wright, like, no, I got all the bread I need. You know what else I got? All the headaches I need. I got all the headaches that I've ever wanted to have, and all this job about to be for everybody else is more headaches. And so I want to see what happens with coaching, because look, there's only 30 NBA jobs. That's it. What's going to happen with these cats that's stuck in it? And they got to become the guy that, like, you got to run the whole lemonade stand now. You Bugs Bunny. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to do 8 jobs at once now. What's going to happen with these cats?
First of all, if there is, when the NCAA come out, if there's a running back at a Texas high school named Gerald Wright, oh, flying that man a scholarship immediately. I don't need to see no tape. Gerald Wright? I can hand the ball to Gerald Wright. Oh, Gerald Wright gonna get you 4 yards without blocking.
Playoff basketball season is heating up with the NBA Finals, and Prize Picks is the most simple way to get in on the action. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and submit your lineup. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. But rather than hear it from me, let's hear from somebody who actually uses Prize Picks. Sean, how's the picking been going for you?
You know, Bo, it's going to be tough to lose the NBA when it comes to Prize Picks, so I'm excited that I could try my hand at, a few other sports like the WNBA and the MLB. Prize Picks also has esports for all the gamers out there, so if you ever want to make picks on games like Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, or even League of Legends, Prize Picks has you covered. And, Bo, I'm sure you have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to these video games.
No, League of Legends. I mean, it's hard to keep up with all these games, but make sure you go to prizepicks.com/Bomani and use code Bomani for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/Bomani. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Now, what happens when the brightest minds in sports and fashion join forces to create the next athletic brand? Greatness wins. Greatness Wins athletic clothing has completely transformed my workout game. It's founded by e-commerce entrepreneur Chris Riccobono, sports legend Derek Jeter, and American Ballet Theater principal dancer Misty Copeland. Greatness Wins is where the demands of sport meets the science of fit. Unlike other athletic brands that prioritize fashion over performance, Greatness Wins combines high-performance functionality with a modern, stylish fit. Made from premium, long-lasting fabrics, Greatness Wins products are built to withstand the toughest workouts. In fact, the Greatness Wins collection is curated and tested by the world's greatest competitors, meeting the highest standards for quality, construction, and endurance. And I've been talking about it, but I've been in the gym getting my workouts done, and I've been rocking Greatness Wins gear, which not only looks dope, but is super comfortable to wear. And don't forget, Father's Day is right around the corner. If you're looking for the perfect gift, look no further. They'll love this. Upgrade your athletic wear at greatnesswins.com now. Use code Bomani and you'll receive 25% off your first purchase. Greatness Wins, where the demands of sport meet the science of fit. Check them out now. That's greatnesswins.com, code Bomani. Hey, let me put you on the game. I got something you need to check out. You ever heard of the BLK app? That's BLK, not black, the BLK app. And if you're not, you're missing out. Check it out. BLK is the largest dating and lifestyle app made specifically for the Black community. Now, for those thinking it's just the same old scene, it's not. BLK switched it up. So you can find a boo if that's what you're looking for. But if you're just looking to make friends, network, group chat with folks based on shared interests, or find out about events happening near you, BLK's got all that too. The app's been around for almost 7 years now, and over 11 million people have downloaded it. It's like the populations of New York City and LA combined. Now, if you've downloaded the app before, re-download it because they've introduced a bunch of new features. And there's new people to meet on the app. And did I mention that it's free? That's right, free. So go download BLK today in the App Store or on Google Play. It's free, it's fun, it's for us. Check it out. Tell me what you think.
All right, so Domonique, one thing, I think that this is kind of an interesting overlap with the NBA Finals where the Mavericks, it is very clear whose team this is, right? It is Luka Doncic's team. They even got Kyrie to buy on with that. And buddy, I saw Kyrie at the podium with not the Ankh, like I don't know what's wilder when he wear the Ankh earring or the feather. But he was up there with the feather. I can't remember who he had on his shirt. He was just in the full Kyrie. And they, like I say, Dallas was just like, oh yeah, wear whatever you want, right? Nice scarf, cool. Like they let all that stuff slide, but he bought in on something I wasn't sure he'd buy in on, which is this is Luka's team. I feel like the Boston Celtics, we all talk about it like it's Jason Tatum's team, but you know, granted, this is a measure of timing, but he's not the one that got the $300 million yet. He's not even the one that got the finals, conference finals MVP that they give away now. And apparently Jaylen Brown had a quote before game one, or like the day before game one, something to the effect of that if the child doesn't feel the love from the village, he'll burn it down to feel some warmth. What?
What was the question that he got asked?
That's a great, somebody who was there just sent me a text. They gave me, it was basically a paraphrase. And they sent me the paraphrase. And it was the child who was not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. And was like, who said it? And I was like, oh, duh, Kyrie. Right? I thought that Kyrie was explaining his own situation. No, sir. It was Diet Kyrie, Jaylen Brown, who said this.
Yeah, that is wild to me. Yeah, there were times, and I think Jaylen Brown probably felt coming into this season a bit disrespected because, like, he was kind of the scapegoat for a couple of their championship misses, and that probably felt unfair. And then there was a lot of speculation around whether they should pay him or not. So he had something to prove coming into the season. But the calling this not Jason Tatum's team, I think. Or you didn't say that exactly, but you said generally, like, it's not clear. Like, that seems fair and honest. It's like he's the best player on the team. Like, we can't argue that. However, when we watch the way that they play and the way that they win in a full team type of way. And it's not the way that we are accustomed to seeing. It's like the Pistons, and that's about it. Everybody else, we had a guy, and we knew he was. I guess we could throw the Warriors in there too, but we still knew Steph was the guy.
Well, the only difference with the Warriors was we didn't know who the guy was because we knew they had two guys.
Yeah.
The Celtics, we're not really that sure they have one. We're not there. Like, the people who make the question as to whether or not Jason Tatum is Paul George or like a elevated version of Paul George, there's something to that, right? Like, I get where it is that people are coming from. But I brought that up in relationship to the Lakers. And I can't find nobody else that has this quote down. But Jaylen Brown, I trust who told me that he said something to that effect at some point during the press availabilities. But the Lakers in their hiring, what I find to be interesting is it seems more like Anthony Davis helped get Darvin Ham fired more than LeBron James. Not that Anthony Davis went upstairs and said, fire this man, but he sure did give that quote during the Nuggets series to the effect of, we don't know what the hell we out here doing. You remember that?
Yeah.
He did that.
Yeah.
He did that. And how do you make the hire that works for LeBron, but also works for Anthony Davis, where Anthony Davis probably makes more sense? Because say what you want about LeBron, but he's going to show up and hoop regardless. Yeah. Anthony Davis, I'm not nearly as sure how that works, or when he's going to show up, what happens if he doesn't like the coach that you hire or whatever it is. And if you're Dan Hurley, do you want this job, not only keeping that fact in mind, but it's probably going to be bring your son to work day, and you're going to have to coach at least one of them.
But the problem is, what's the alternative? And I know the alternative seems nice, but we spent the first portion of this show talking about why the alternative is not as nice as it may seem. So, yeah, I could deal with Bron and his son and AD. We figured out the best of our abilities, and I'm not going back to Connecticut. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can't do it. I ain't going to be able to do it. It's not just Connecticut. It's the NCAA, but also... yeah, it's Connecticut.
You're just going hard on Connecticut. Like,
I'm not going hard on Connecticut. They know who they are.
No. See, I didn't say you were going wrong on Connecticut.
Okay.
I was saying that you were going hard on the point that you were making about Connecticut. Not necessarily that you would be. Look, man, I worked at ESPN in the era where they were setting up all these satellite offices because they knew what time it was.
Yeah.
They knew what nobody really tried to go up there and do that, bro. And even look, Danny Hurley, he ain't from Paris, but he is from Jersey City. It's just right there.
Yeah.
Right. It's right over there. People be living in Jersey City and coming to New York City. I thought that when I first heard about ESPN in Bristol, I assumed that it was Connecticut. That's right next to New York City. It's not though.
No, you gotta fly.
It's not.
You got to fly. Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, I was talking about UConn. I wasn't even making a point about, but I'm not going to back off it. I wasn't even making a point about not wanting to live in Connecticut because Dan Hurley doesn't strike me as the guy that cares about being in the scene, but
yes,
he got family. They don't want to live there. Like when there are other options.
And his brother live over there in Arizona. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
That's a quick little hop skip. I'm assuming they like each other. And it's funny, you corrected on the Danny. I am, when it comes to guys like this, I'm the guy that's known you since you were a kid, and I'm going to keep calling you Squirt because that was always what your name was. When Dan Hurley played college basketball, He was Danny Hurley. Like, I didn't realize that with Dan Le Batard until I, started working with him. But when Dan Le Batard was working in college, he was Danny Le Batard. And so, like, the guys like Wilbon have to dial back from calling him Danny. I got bad news for Danny Hurley. From here, he's probably going to be Danny forever. Probably what it's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, it's like you ain't asking me to call you Delicious, like to go back to the Kings of Comedy.
Right.
Like if you feel like it is a measure of respect for me to call you something reasonable, it's like different when if somebody like call me Mister, man,
right?
Get out of here. But I can muster Dan. I think as long as I don't forget.
Well, like Bobby Knight became Bob Knight, and now he was Bobby Knight. Like it was always this is just what it's gonna be. It gets when it gets awkward, man. Yeah. And it's when them cats. When they pledge Allah, right? Like once they go online and they pledge Allah and they get their line name, like that one, that takes a little time to come around on, like I understand why Muhammad Ali was so upset, but bruh, like you was just Cassius yesterday. Like we gonna get there. We gonna get there.
It's entirely different though. Like it is entirely different. Cassius Clay. So I was kind of saying like it's the same thing. It's as that, but then when you started talking about it, it's entirely different. This man said, no, I'm an adult now, call me Dan, stop calling me Danny. It's very different from, no, I don't want to be called by my slave name. That's a whole different conversation.
Well, hold on, to be fair. He was talking about his slave name, right? Not everybody that pledge Allah is worried about the slave element of it, right? You know what I'm saying? They just want to put on for the new set. That's just they come to a new place. And that's where they want to be. Like, I don't know if you remember, but it used to be a dude named Olivier St. John who played a little bit for Michigan. And then he went to San Jose State. And then out of nowhere, he pledged Allah, and or maybe he might have been down with Allah forever, but he changed his name to Tariq Abdul Wahad. And I didn't ever get the memo. I just looked up on the video game, and it was some dude named Tariq Abdul. Chris Jackson changed his name to Mahmoud Abdul Rauf. For whatever reason, I was able to adjust on that one. That one didn't take that much. Then you get cats who just pledge whatever. Yeah. Ron Artest decided he was going to be Meta World Peace. I never stopped calling him Ron Artest. I'm sorry. I just never took that seriously. I don't know if it's my place to take it seriously. Nah, but I never did.
You do whatever you want. I'm sure they can do whatever they want. But I think it's funny because I extend some level of import to religious decisions that I don't necessarily think you have to. And it's clear that some people don't. But when you bring it all the way down, it ain't nothing but a rebrand. It's like your homeboy you grew up with. He joined the gang, and now he like, nah, stop calling me Devin. My name is Merk T, dog. And you like, man, Devin, if you don't shut your ass up.
I told you I had a homeboy who knew T.I. from way back. And so when T.I. dropped in 01 and like I'm Serious is playing on the radio, and he was like, he be telling me, call him Tip. I call him by his name, Clifford. And like this is before anybody knew his name was Clifford. Like now we're just numb to the idea that T.I.'s name is Clifford. No, this dude had just dropped. We didn't even know he was Tip yet because he was going by T.I. He was just insistent, Clifford.
That's not fair though, because this is a whole different sect of name change where it's like he has a performing name. Like you don't nobody call Madonna by whatever her real name is.
But her name is Madonna.
Oh, okay. Really?
Yeah. Huh. They're very Italian. They're very, very Italian.
Clearly. Jeez, I was going through my mind like, who do I know for sure has a stage name?
Madonna Louise Ciccone.
Jeez, that's ridiculous.
Madonna Louise Ciccone.
It's not something that we do in this culture. It's like naming somebody Jesus. Like we just,
that is names. Very interesting. We don't do like if it's written as Jesus, we know it's Jesus.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it ain't Jesus.
But that's wild though. You know, like how come?
Cultural norms, I guess. I don't get it. There was maybe somebody wrote a think piece. It used to be a name, and somebody wrote a think piece a long time ago. Like you can't be naming your baby Jesus. That's too much pressure.
No, you know, that's a fair point. I feel the same way about naming your kid Shaquille. You know what I'm saying? Like, what happens when he 5'9"? This is not, you know, this is they deserve a little better. I was going to tell you also about calling people by their real name. I had a friend that was from St. Louis, and hers that she insisted upon was calling Chingy Howard. She was real big on making sure you're like, you mean Howard?
Yeah, that's her making it about her at this point. Call that man Chingy. And how often does Chingy come up in conversation? She was going out of her way.
This was in the time. This was in the era. She was called Howard. By the way, nothing says you're a junior, aren't you? Like the name Howard Earl Bailey.
Oh, yeah. That's an old name.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm sorry, man. In the year 1980, you passed Howard and Earl and Bailey down to that boy. You just made this all about you.
That's why that man go by Chingy.
Yeah. Like he probably like Tip, right? Insisting that you call him Tip. Like he Clifford stayed in the past.
They called him Clifford? Like your man who knew him, they didn't call him Cliff or something? Like
he apparently called him Clifford. I don't know what the rest of the block was doing. Maybe it's a bunch of other dudes over there in Bowen Homes off Bankhead that's out here insisting upon calling T.I. Clifford. I have no idea, but he was insistent upon calling him Clifford.
Yeah, that's one of them things when calling people by the wrong name, it can escalate. Like some people take that as a level of disrespect, and some people mean it that way too. I feel like sometimes if you go up to Tip and you be like, "Hey, Clifford," like you trying to start something, just call that man T.I., whatever T.I.P., whatever he want to be called, call him T.I.
You try to son him. That is, you're 100% correct. What is happening in that moment is you are trying to sun him. Right. That being said, I'm glad I ain't never had no name I felt like I need to run away from.
Yeah. I know at certain points people call you Bo that don't know you as Bo. That don't sit right with you.
I can't do nothing about it.
Yeah. I'm the same way about Dom. Like, I don't.
See, that's the thing. You don't like the shortened version of your name that people lead on. I call you all the way out Domonique every single time. You don't like Dom, and I don't love Neek. There's one Neek. It's not your fault, but that one was already claimed. You know what I'm saying? So you Domonique from here on out. But when you say you feel like Dom, make it sound like you a fat Italian man.
That's what it feels. So it's just what you're accustomed to. And I'm the opposite of people who want to change their identity from when they were kids. Nobody ever called me Dom. I grew up around black people. And my mom didn't call me Dom. My friends didn't call me Dom. And if that's how I grew up, I'd have been fine. I didn't have anybody call me, even football teams. Nobody called me Dom until business school. It was the first time. I'm 28 years old. And people like, hey, Dom's over there. I'm like, who's over where? Yeah, it's absurd. Everybody called me Neek or Fox or some variation of Foxy or Neek, something like that.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people, especially at this point in my life, they hear my friends talk to me, and my friends, by and large, call me Bo. Right now, growing up, it was interesting because everybody outside of my house called me Bomani. Everybody in the house called me Bo. And so, like, if you came to the house, you probably left there being converted. But I would prefer to give you the option of this, right? But people take it, and I recognize that overwhelmingly they're doing it like in a familial way, like they're trying to establish closeness. Now, the problem, of course, is sometimes we ain't close, but I have come to learn to like make peace and live with that. Now, there's another example of one where people, I think, get a little bit too familiar. And I'm like, hey, man, that ain't no nickname. That's something y'all made up. That needs to stop. But what can you do?
Yeah. Well, don't make sense for you to say it now, but I was thinking when you said there's only one Neek, and we were talking about T.I. There's a few years ago, somebody was doing an interview with T.I. about his favorite Atlanta athletes. And so he said Michael Vick and he said Neek. And someone made like a social media clip out of it and put a picture of Michael Vick over him talking about Michael Vick, and then put a picture of me when he said Neek, because I played for the Falcons for one season. And whoever was doing this was like, oh, he talking about Falcons. Google, people named Domonique played for the Falcons. Clearly, he was talking about the human highlight, but that shit went around social media, got sent to me. He's like, you T.I. favorite athlete? I was like, there is absolutely no way that Clifford is talking about me.
Hey, you had a great year in 2008.
Summer's officially in full swing, which means if you're not outdoors, you're missing out. I love going for a walk or finding a nice spot in the park to people watch, and I always make sure I'm rocking a nice pair of sunglasses. Thanks to our friends at Shady Rays, they have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames, crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. So, Sean, what's your relationship with sunglasses like?
Bo, a big part of living in Los Angeles is wearing a nice pair of shades. But, the biggest issue for me is that I'm always either losing them or breaking them. And, the best part about Shady Rays is if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, you don't have to worry. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is actually backed by lost or broken replacements. Plus, if you don't love your shades, exchange them for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support.
And exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to ShadyRays.com and use code BOMANI for 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sean, this year's gone by so quickly, but it's always good to slow down and celebrate your wins. What's something that you're proud of from 2024 and that you're looking forward to for the rest of the year?
Bo, I'm certainly proud of this podcast and all that we've done this year. 3 shows a week is never easy. Plus, we even did a live show at South by Southwest, which was an awesome time for everyone involved. And in terms of what I'm looking forward to, I'm excited to see what else we could do with this podcast and beyond for the rest of the year. Between the hip hop series we're launching on YouTube and the summer slate of sports, I genuinely can't wait to see where this pod goes.
I got to agree with you. So when life goes so fast, it's important to take a moment to celebrate your wins and make adjustments for the rest of the year. Therapy can help you take stock of your progress and set achievable goals for the next 6 months. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Celebrate the progress that you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/Bomani today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Bomani.
All right, Domonique, I really didn't want to get back to women's basketball until I actually watched some women's basketball so I could talk about women's basketball. Somebody walked up on Kennedy Carter at the hotel. This is the headline from ESPN.com. The Chicago Sky were met by a man with the cameras. They arrived Wednesday at their team hotel ahead of their Thursday tilt against the Mystics. Yeah, they said security de-escalated the encounter. They said he did not say anything racist, nothing misogynistic. He just rolled up on her at the hotel, apparently with some questions about Caitlin Clark.
So this is just like a phone camera, or this is like a media member? I mean,
it sounds like somebody a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah, gotta be. That's scary and that's sad and it's absurd that we are at this point about this. And I don't know who this weirdo crazy man is, but that foul was a foul, guys. It was a flagrant fine, but what are we doing? What are we doing?
Because we so conditioned now to talk about basketball without talking about basketball, right? That put it to you like this. I think the most interesting topic of the NBA postseason for a lot of people on the internet has been the end of Inside the NBA. Like, we are very accustomed to talking about basketball without talking about basketball, for better or worse. Like, we've taken the idea that it's a lifestyle thing a little bit too far. But I was just using that as a segue, as I see here that apparently TNT is trying to negotiate some NBA rights just so they can keep Inside the NBA going. And I got to say, that is some backwards ass logic when you really stop and think about this. I love Inside the NBA as much as the next man, but we want them to keep the basketball just to keep the post-game show.
That seems absurd.
A post-game show that don't talk about basketball that much, or that's not really the reason why we here for it.
Yeah, that seems absurd. I don't know the financials of the situation, but I can't imagine that it would be financially prudent if you can't afford a real package to get this fake package so you can go pay all these other guys a bunch of money to do the post-game show. The post-game show will find a place. All these guys will find a place. If you like basketball, it's going to be fine. Charles Barkley not going to be quiet. Shaq's not going to disappear. Like, I'm not as concerned about the future of Inside the NBA as the rest of us, or as many of us seem to be.
Well, I do think that unless they're going to shoot it in Atlanta, there will be no Ernie doing that. Ernie's 65 years old or whatever it is. He got his bread. It's kind of like what we were talking about with these other cats, right? He got his bread. He ain't about to be catching all these planes and everything else. I don't know him, but I get the feeling that's not really going to be the groove that he makes. If I'm Amazon, I probably try to find a way to hold this together. But I had seen the thing where at one point Charles Barkley was talking about doing this under his production company. And I don't know anything about Charles's production company. I don't know what other work they're doing. I don't know who's in charge, whatever it is. I just know there ain't no way in HE double hockey sticks that the NBA is going to be calling and talking business directly with Charles Barkley. that Adam Silver didn't come that far to go that far. He did not.
I think you're probably right that it's not something that they would like to do, but if Charles Barkley started a production company and inside that production company is inside the NBA, they're going to figure it out because they value the hell out of that show. I don't know the metrics of how it translates to like fandom or viewership or like engagement. All those numbers matter, but whatever numbers they're looking at, the way that they are behaving about inside the NBA, that shit matters. It matters big time to the future of this sport. So they're going to have to humble themselves and figure this out.
I mean, it is the flagship show of the NBA. It is. I think it's worth noting, and this is something that I don't think people understand about the way ESPN does business, is that ESPN doesn't do post-game shows. If they've got an event that's big enough for them to hold, it rolls into SportsCenter, but they don't have a post-game show. So for these 20 years or so that ESPN has had, the main jewels of the NBA contract, they've never had a post-game show. This is the post-game show of the NBA. It's the only one that's out there. And so I think it has become defining and so familiar. Like at this point, Charles has been doing that show for 24 years. Kenny's been doing it for 25 at least. At this point, Shaq has been doing the show for over 10 years. Yeah. They're the most familiar thing about the NBA, easily. Especially after they went, and I guess these guys hadn't been as long-standing anyway, but after Van Gundy and Mark Jackson went away, and let's not get started with all the upheaval they've had. Maybe JJ gonna stay, so they'll have their consistency. Yeah. But this is the most consistent thing that the NBA has going, and there is a value to having that consistency. But I do wonder if people love the show as much as they're saying, or it's the thing to complain about, because the whole purpose of social media now is for complaining. Like that's what people go there to do.
Yeah. Again, the thing that I don't know the answer to, and I guess I'm kind of a little bit mealy-mouthed about it, because underneath it all, I partially think that it's not as valuable as we make it out to be, or we have been making it out to be recently. Like, I think it is hugely valuable right now. And I think that they probably do not make back what they spend in ads, what they spend on putting that show on. But it has a value, it has a cachet, it makes people respect and like TNT and the NBA more than they normally would. But how much? Like, I just don't think that it's like pivotal. What it comes down to, what NBA ratings and what NBA popularity, in my view, is based on is like, how good are the players? How interesting are the players? And like having these clips about that Chuck or Shaq do that are interesting and funny and engaged and grab attention. There's a value to it. It's cool. I think it like is dressing around the NBA, but it ain't core. We gonna be all right.
Well, I think the argument on the other side of that is that I get the point that it's dressing around it, but I think ultimately like why it does matter who broadcasts the games is, and when I say who broadcasts it, I mean like who the play-by-play man is, who the color man is what it makes the games feel like.
Right.
So there's something to be said about somebody like Jim Nantz, for example. Them football games feel important when Jim Nantz is calling those games. When you have a lesser crew like the Burkhart, Greg Olsen crew, and I know people say Greg Olsen is doing such a great job, whatever you say, they don't sound like the game don't sound important to me when they are on the call. A game sounded important with Al Michaels on the call. And they're guys, it is not just because the guys have been doing it forever. Right. That like you just, it's to me, it's not simply that a guy has been on important games, therefore the game feels important. No, some people have this intangible sort of gravitas, and it changes the way that you feel about the overall product. And I think having those guys there, it's partially dressing around it, but I think it's also central to the way that people feel about the NBA and the kind of personality that the NBA has. Like, I think that they are the most representative piece of like what player and former player culture of the NBA is. You get more of that now in the podcast space, but I think that they contribute to what people think the NBA is, not just simply, and I don't think you can simply quantify it by, well, how many people watch the games. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. And I think that they are figures that transcend basketball, which they're known by your grandma. They're known by little kids recognize them. And I think there's a familiarity there that is also hard to manage, having familiarity and having that gravitas that you're talking about, which is, it's a different type of gravitas, but you're right. Games feel different when they're there, they're having fun, whether they are giving us the insight or not that we're looking for. We can go to Twitter and find somebody breaking down the numbers. They're giving us the feeling that this is big, this is important. So yeah, there's value to that. And it may not be able to be measured through the raw numbers of it. It probably can be.
I tell you this though, don't you worry. Charles Barkley going to be on somebody's TV next year.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Somebody's. He is, I did that work for Turner during the conference finals. And the one thing, and I had a great time doing it. That's as much fun as I think I've ever had doing television. Like, I really couldn't say enough how much fun I had. I appreciated them having me, like all of that stuff. But what was very clear to me from working there for that little period of time was the culture is Charles Barkley. He is 100% the culture there. Everything about that trickles down from Charles. Mm-hmm. Like the idea when they were ripping on me about my shorts being ashy and all that stuff, that's because you can show up and rip on Charles and not warn him, which then means that everybody else has to have that, which means everybody else has to be loose and cool about it. Everybody's got to be humble to a degree. Everything's got to be like there wasn't no, you can see a little big head stuff when it happens walking around at ESPN. I ain't seen none of that down there. And I think that all comes down from the culture of Chuck. The whole reason we know that show, when they did like that 30th anniversary inside the NBA, man, okay, 30, cool, whatever you say. Just give me to the part where Charles shows up. Because when Charles shows up, all of this changes. And so if somebody tries to add Charles to whatever it is they already do, they need to understand that's the sheriff right there. Mr. Jesse Robin is trained. Y'all ain't going to tell him what to do, but he going to show up and do it, man, because Charles made big money doing this, dog. Big money. He ain't walking away from that.
He going to be on somebody's TV. Hopefully it ain't on CNN again. I like my Charles doing pre and post game and halftime, giving me the good Charles energy. But you're right, and I think the thing is, if it's a great culture to have, and it's great cover to have for everybody else. I think his value to a team or to a broadcast is that first point that you're making is. It's a level of, I don't even know if it's humility, but it's probably just security and confidence. That's like, all right, y'all, he let them post tweets from complete strangers talking about him being fat. Like, that's an environment that everybody would like to tune in and watch. Maybe you wouldn't want to be in it, but it makes you feel comfortable. And that's Chuck. Can you imagine Kenny being like, hey, watch your mouth? No. We can't do that. Chuck out here taking fat jokes of Photoshop pictures from nobodies.
Yes. Charles is letting them put in the teleprompter, I am a dumbass. And laughing at it. Domonique, not your boy, not the God. No, sir. I would need a lot of softening before I could get to that place.
By softening, you mean money? I don't know.
I don't even know if that, I feel like the money is why I ain't got to put up with this. Like the idea you going to pay me more money and thereby you can talk bad about me. That's not how money works. What are you talking about?
That's funny.
More money means y'all need to shut up.
That's funny. That is funny. You're right about that. And that's normally how it works. Is the highest paid person is the person that you like, the CEO, the guy who got the corner office. We don't make no jokes about him. He getting all the money. We make jokes.
No, ain't no
everybody else.
Ain't no roast. Like that's right. That's one thing for me right there. I can't have no roast. And the reason I can't have no roast is very simple. I might be laughing at your jokes and I might think to myself that they funny. But my response could be funny.
Yeah.
Entirely possible it'll be funny. Or you might find out for the first time that I think you're ugly. And I'll be like, why is nobody laughing? All I did, I mean, come on. You snaggletooth ugly motherfucker. That's not funny to you?
I'm trying to remember a time where somebody thought, so I was on Get Up a couple days ago and I ended up like taking a shot at Alan Hahn in a way that I didn't mean it to. I didn't mean to. And it just made me think about like, when has it gone wrong? But I actually had a situation with Acho where I upset him. But that was the Alan Hahn thing was like, Alan made a reference in one take to Gladiator and to Eminem. And I was like, damn, Alan, them old ass references, you making me feel young. And I was suggesting like, yeah, that's my time too. But I think it came off as like, I'm the young guy and you old. I didn't mean it that way, but Alan's cool. He rolled with it. But I can't remember too many times where somebody made a joke and the other person's like, hey, I ain't here for that play.
I felt like I might have gone too far with one thing on the Turner shoot. I was there with Chris Haynes. I think he was cool with it. But they asked me, we were talking something about doing a podcast. and they said if the two of you had a podcast, what would it be called? And I said without blinking, oh, that's easy. The Bomani Jones Show with Chris Haynes.
That's a great joke.
Yeah, and they did a whole mock-up of it later.
Oh.
And I could understand why he might not have found that to be funny. That's all I'm saying. I could see why he might not.
Yeah.
The man come a long way in life. And I was just like, our show? What you mean our?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that depends on the level of your relationship. But I feel like that's a reasonable joke. That's a good one. It's funny. That's the thing about jokes is like if where they're coming from matters. And
what if you stop and reassess your joke and realize, no, that was actually what you meant?
that's exactly.
I think that might have been what shone through.
That's the thing. On First Take or Get Up, sometimes I'll make this joke about how like just play this like cocky, arrogant guy about how handsome I think I am, and like I think I'm a good looking guy. But the problem is, if it's too true, it's uncomfortable. So like if I was actually a walk around 10, I can't make handsome jokes. Like that ain't like people like that's weird. But like, all right, I'm a decent looking guy and I just play this cornerback cocky role. It's funny. We all laugh about it. I think maybe that is also something about the jokes that you are making is if you genuinely believe in the hierarchy that you are creating. Like I don't believe I'm killing Mike Greenberg in the looks department. I think it's depending on the flavor you like.
Yes, you do.
But,
yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
All right,
yes,
right.
you do.
I mean, if we had a pool though, I'm killing Mike in the pool. I'm popping that top in a hot second, and I'm not breathing till we get to the drinks.
You about to get your Luca on. You about to bite it. Then just Hulkamania. You're about to be a real American in here.
Do a couple
Michael
push-ups.
Jackson.
Couple push-ups.
You go hit him with that.
Yeah, Mike don't stand a chance when I hit him with that. Get him a couple abs, and it's over.
I would just say this right fast about Michael Jackson in his rip open his shirt era. Like, that's how you know couldn't nobody tell him nothing. Ain't nobody want to see that. Like, nobody was just like, yo, let me get a look at Mike's pectoralis major. Because they was not really that. You think Mike ever did a push-up?
Yeah, absolutely. Joe made him do push-ups.
You think so? Like on his knuckles?
Yeah, never mind. I was thinking about it as a punishment, but Joe did not use push-ups as a punishment.
No, he did not.
Joe.
He did not. No, he did not. Joe had a different use for them knuckles.
Joe was a physical disciplinarian.
Yes, that is exactly it. Joe was not like, go drop and give me 50.
Yeah.
That was not it. You might get dropped.
I imagine a scenario where they were dancing and prepping for their shows when they was small time and Gary, and he was like, you messed that up again, you got 10 push-ups. That wasn't what Joe was doing. He was pushing all right.
Yeah. He was. But that is Domonique Foxworth. Check him out on the Domonique Foxworth Show, available where all 5 podcasts are sold. And damn, we did not get around to talking about that terrible Clipper show. I do want to get to talking about the terrible Clipper show. I guess we got next week. Yeah. Let a few more episodes stack up. But y'all need to go check this out. And for those of you who know me and know how I feel about Larry Fishburne, or Lawrence Fishburne, I'm going to call him what he wants to be called. I'm not saying I'm rooting for racism, but I'm not rooting for Larry Fishburne. Lawrence. That's all I'm saying. As many of you know, at a press junket in 2003, Lawrence Fishburne, I didn't like the way that he talked to me. I felt like he was being disrespectful. And what may or may not be a coincidence, a couple years later, his daughter was on camera smoking meat. So I don't really understand why everybody seems to be so silent. I mean, I don't know if those two things were connected or not. Maybe they weren't. But they happened. And I bet after that, he wished he hadn't tried to play my face in front of all those people.
We got some prospects or something.
I don't know what's wrong with Domonique over there. Just what God don't like ugly. You know what I'm saying? What did she say? Oh, and it shaved. Isn't that what she said about that? Damn. That must have been tough.
Oh, gosh.
Like you gotta You got to reassess. I mean, I personally would reassess some decisions I had made in the face of those circumstances. And maybe one of the decisions he got to was, damn, I probably should have just let Bomani alone. He was minding his own business. Sean, you got prize picks for the people?
I'm debating whether or not I should play the music.
No. You don't have to play the music.
We'll let it
You don't
ride.
have to play the music. I've talked about this many times. He tried to break bad with me at a press junket, and what may have been a coincidence, years later, his worst nightmare came true. And we all found out about it.
Bad on you, Larry. All right, let's speaking of the Larry, speaking of the Lawrence O'Brien trophy, we have some NBA Finals picks. We're going to do some series picks across games 1 through 4. 99 points total. Let's take more for Kyrie Irving there. Derek White, 15 rebounds. I'll take more there. Luka Doncic, 26.5 points. I'll take more there because he's going to have to score. And Bo, I think you'll like this one. 98.5 points. Jaylen Brown, I'm going to take less.
Well, yes, at 98.5 points. I think that's a great idea, Sean. Your optimism does, in fact, know bounds. It has found limitations. Well, all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here on The Right Time. Hit our voicemail line, 323-596-7767, 323-596-7767. Tell us about that time that you wound up engaged in basketball competition with a woman, and let's just say it didn't go the way that you thought that it was going to go. I had another topic that the Fishburne thing motivated for me, but maybe I'll save that until next week when we talk about Larry Fishburne again, when we talk about Clip. Lawrence, he wants to be called Lawrence. 323-596-7767. Tell us about hooping against them ladies and getting your arse busted. Sean, you handles everything behind the scenes. Thank you, sir. Remember, follow The Right Time. Subscribe, like, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars. I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. And we'll talk to you guys in a couple of days. Don't break bad at me at press junkets, and your daughters won't embarrass you in front of the world. Maybe.